Lucy? Oh, hi, Ethel. Hi, Lucy. What did the doctor say? Ethel, we're going to have a baby.
I Love Lucy was the most popular show on TV, 5 Emmys, and never came in third place in the ratings. Everything seemed to great in the movie, but when fans today slow down some of the scenes, they're seeing things that don't fit with the story we've told, things that were never supposed to be able to see on 1950s. People are now asking about TVs, asking tough questions about what really happened in those studios' doors in 1950. Only 4 million Americans. A TV was in every home. That number had just 4 times what it was the year before. The medium was brand new, but CBS had already seen it. The way things were going, they were desperate to get Lucille Ball's hit to move from the radio show My Favorite Husband to TV. The show had been a big hit on the radio show with 124 episodes from 1948 to in 1951. Ball played Liz Cougar. Cooper was put in place of Richard Denning. The story was based on a well-known The Record of Mr. and Mrs. Cougat, published in 1942, of a happy marriage that was already been made into a movie. CBS thought Ball's perfect in this family comedy. Time jokes could shine on the small, but Lucille Ball threw a surprise. She only said she'd do the show if her real husband Des Arnaz played her husband on screen as well. CBS didn't like that idea at all. Said that people wouldn't believe every American woman would be married to a Latino man. They didn't mind that Ball and Arnaz were married, and they didn't care that they met on a movie that took place in 1940, and since then all they saw was a Cuban accent and a face. They didn't know he wanted Denning to come back. Someone we could trust. Ball didn't move. We are married, she snapped. It's not just about casting. It was about taking on. The America was shaped by ugly, silent rules, TV rules that said mixed-race love was okay, wasn't there? So Ball and Arnaz, they took things into their own hands and made the name Desilu production sounded like a mix of Desi and Lucy. Just like their lives had in the summer of 1950, they hit the road with a vaudeville show. They paid for it. They worked together with General Amusement Corporation to help with the DeCessi's band played music on tour. Lucy wrote comedy sketches. The same people who worked on the radio show Jess Robert Oppenheimer Jr., Bob Carroll, and Meline Pugh wrote new songs for their show. These writers would go on to become the core group behind I Love Lucy. It felt more like a nightclub on stage. More performances than regular theater, but they worked. People loved them. Ball's physical comedy gets great reviews. Jumped out at you. Their chemistry was clear by the beginning of 1951. Both CBS and Philip gave up. It was agreed that Morris would pay for a Ball and Arno had a full half-hour show. They wanted to do more than just be on TV, want a show that the whole family can enjoy, watch something real together. Another generic sitcom from the 1950s where the husband was king, and the wife stayed. They wanted to show marriage for what it was. It really was messy, funny, stubborn, and really like the main character. Lucy Ricardo wasn't happy staying at home. She kept trying to get into show business, failing in funny ways, but that Ball's own life was reflected in her ambition. Didn't want to be home alone while Desi went on a trip. Their real marriage had already been hurt by being apart. Made the show tense, but made it funnier, which softened it. Fought, but they always made up. That was one of the things I never did when I was mad. The rules that Ball and Arnaz follow in real life. Laughs were used to tell the truth. On March 2, 1951, the pilot was shot. Episode at Columbia Square Studios on CBS. 3 RCA cameras were used to film it. And recorded on a cheap kinescope way at the time, but when they saw Ball and Arnaz knew they had it back. Something unique that the pilot already had everything Lucy needs to become famous. Ricky is trying to stop her, and the chaos between some of the jokes came out in afterwards episodes like The Audition, aired as episode 6. Ralph Levy directed the pilot. He was already an experienced TV host. Jack Benny, George Burns, and by October, Edwin thought the pilot had sold the show. 1951 saw the start of I Love Lucy, but it almost didn't happen. Casting behind the scenes. CBS didn't just want to cover the battle. They begged Ball to keep things quiet. The same thing they thought viewers wouldn't let a mixed-race couple get married on screen. It was thought that Ball was married To a Cuban man in real life it didn't matter to them, it made things worse in their eyes. The executives said his accent was hard to understand. Was strange, and they couldn't see that they saw the truth. A real marriage, true love, and a show that could change everything. After that there was Vicky Vance. She wasn't supposed to be there. Not there either. She had a nervous breakdown in 1945 while putting on The Voice of the Turtle. It got her on Broadway. Putting her job on hold, she took some time off. Went to therapy and slowly came back to playing small parts on stage, and finally getting to the La Jolla Playhouse in California. She went back to the same game that broke her on July 28, 1951. She was giving a in the afternoon on Saturday. Desi Arnaz and Jess Oppenheimer came to see the play. Their goal was to find someone to play. She wasn't trying out for Ethel Mertz. Vance was just doing her job, but that night they gave her the part right away. Don't need a screen test to get in. Right time for William Frawley's story wasn't likely either. He was 64 and he had been in more than 100 movies but hadn't done anything big. In years he began his work in 1914 with his wife in a vaudeville show. Divorced in 1927, and by 1951, he wasn't living with anyone. Choices. He called, and he went ahead and called Lucille Ball himself. CBS didn't like the play Fred Mertz. Frawley had a bad name because he drank. Not enough. He wasn't known to be honest as. Risk. Arnaz told Frawley what was going on. Show up late or drunk even once. Moreover, Frawley agreed, you're out. Everyone was shocked when he didn't show up. He learned his lines after one drink. Reading years of work on stages had taught him how to be very sharp. Then came the real test for people in the U.S. Would they let a Cuban-American man in? As a romantic lead, would they watch a that showed in a quiet but clear way it was an interracial marriage? That the answer came quickly when I Love Lucy first aired on October 15, 1951, no one thought it would happen. Just stay alive, let alone change TV. It had to end for good at 9 p.m. on Mondays. Go up against Lights Out on NBC, a top 10 show based on a popular radio show. Theater reviewers were blunt. They said Lucy hadn't a chance, but in 7 months, by May 1952, everything was turned around. 1 million American families watched. Every Monday night, I Love Lucy. Almost 3/4 of all homes with TVs in a country with only 15 million sets there was one, and on April 18, 1952 Nielsen called it the best show ever. TV Guide in the U.S. called it this season's most watched show. Smooth, not deaf, well made and funny, not bad for a show that was never going to work. What made it unique wasn't just Lucy's funny, that's how the show was made, not like other shows at the time. I Love Lucy was shot on 35 film with real people in the studio that had never been done before. Most shows were shown live in New York and filmed using a fuzzy method called movie theater. But Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz said no, so they stayed in. They used real film and made sure, of course, every frame looked good. CBS had to pay twice as much to film this way. Ball and Arnaz didn't want to pay, did something brave. They took a $1,000 pay cut every week. Their pay went from $5,000 to $4,000, but they took charge of the show through their. CBS didn't hire the company. DeSalle Productions don't think old episodes will ever be important, but Ball and Arnaz played the long form. Years later, they sold the game to a network, back the rights to the first 180 episodes to CBS for $5 million, which is about $19.5 million today. Their deal turned into an example of an artist who owns their work rather than giving it all to studios, and it was even smarter when Ball became while she was pregnant during the second season. Took some time off after giving birth. Desi, how to keep the show going was hard for Arnaz. He thought of a simple but great idea. Why not show some of the already filmed episodes again? At that, back then, no one had ever shown a TV show again. People didn't mind, in truth be told, they loved it. The plot was such a hit that when the Lucy Goes to the Hospital episode aired on January 19, 1953, the same day Ball gave birth to, more than 70% of American TVs were tuned in. About 44 million people watched the rerun. idea was born, and it later turned into a big doll business the show kept going, being in charge for 4 of its 6. I Love Lucy was the most watched show for many years. It was the most popular show in America in 1952. 1953 season with a score of 67.3, the largest number ever for a single season of any TV show. The following year, it got 58.8, and the next year, 49.3. Even in the end season in 1956 and 1957 brought back the number 1 spot with a score of 43.7, almost 17 million homes. Consistent dominance had never been seen before. Never came in lower than 3rd place in its whole run from the beginning. The show a lot of people in its first season, 50.9%, and brought in 7.78 million third-placed households. It took more than taking the top spot 3 years in a row, even when it dropped to 2nd place in its 5th season, but it still had a 46.1 rating. Never went down very far because the fans' awards came after the ratings, and the show won 5 Emmys and was named both 1953 and 1954 for Best Situation Comedy. 1954. In 1956, Lucille Ball was chosen as the Best Actress. Vivian Vance played Ethel, won Best Supporting in 1954. These wins showed the critics were wrong and helped make TV the art it deserved as a serious work. But I Love Lucy didn't just go away. It lived on for a long time after 1957. For its first 6 seasons, CBS offered the show for syndication in 1967, and it went off again by 2011. More than 41 million Americans were still sitting there. The show every year, that's more than 5. It aired decades after its last episode. In more than 100 countries' languages. In 2013, a colored copy of 8 people watched the Christmas episode. Million people watched primetime TV. In 2023, Pluto TV even started showing I Love You 24 hours a day. When Lucille Ball got together with Lucy, she was pregnant during the 2nd season of I. It was almost the end of Love Lucy. This wasn't just a private moment, for it turned out to be one of the most TV shows with controversial events history. In 1952, an American TV still followed strict rules for censorship. Not even a hint of what they could show at having sex and being pregnant that was sponsors and CBS executives are not allowed to. Were shocked. They told Desi Arnaz, "You cannot show a pregnant woman," she said. Video of a woman on TV. An advertising agency said that letting it was possible for Lucille Ball to kill the whole show. Everyone was scared of the worst, the thought that a married woman could be. It was seen as too having a child. American families should find it terrible to see on screen. The fear was so strong that it was illegal to use the word pregnant in not just being avoided, banned. Instead, they had to write with words like having a baby and being blessed. Even the title of the episode, that Lucy is pregnant, as was announced on Santé, used the French word for to avoid getting caught in the English ban on language. Another episode was called Women Who Are Pregnant Are Unpredictable, but they were afraid to put that title on the screen. CBS even blocked a scene in a nightclub where Ricky says the pregnancy by getting him to sing This Is Rockabilly Baby, calling it a blessed event. It sounds silly now, but at the time this level of censorship was very dangerous. This wasn't just about sponsors, it showed a way of life that didn't want to believe in sex even between people who were married. Things got so that CBS called in backup, not from the lawyers, but because of their faith, asked a Catholic priest and a Protestant, a minister and a rabbi, to look over the scripts. They hoped the clergy would either allow or stop the storyline. It's amazing that all 3 it was leaders who read the episodes and didn't ask for one change. One of who wrote the show, Meline Pugh, the review team for Religion, said they didn't change a word. That okay helped calm down the nerves of the network. It was a sitcom about a silly couple suddenly needed religious help, permission to only say that the wife was having a baby, even though she was scared. People just couldn't get enough of it. By the real life of Lucille Ball in the early 1953 pregnancy had become big news all over the country. The whole country was after her. It as if it were a royal event. CBS did something brave. They set the birth of the baby will be shown on the exact Ball was having her real cesarean section that day. Part Monday, January 19, 1953. That no kind of media coordination could be heard of at the time, and it worked. Lucy Goes to the Hospital broke every existing TV record of it was seen by over 44 million people, or 71.7% of every TV in the U.S. To put it another way, taking that into account, the next day Dwight D. Eisenhower was sworn in as president. Just got into office. His inauguration only got 67.7% of viewers. More people watched Lucy giving birth than to see a new president take office. That one event showed that large audiences were ready for a more honest, emotional, true stories, and it had a big middle. Still point the finger at the old moral scary TV executives, but Lucille Ball was still taking real risks after the pregnancy. After 3 years, she almost died on film in 1956 for I Love Lucy. In the episode Lucy's Italian Movie, what looked like a funny grape scene where Lucy stomps on something in a wine vat to learn how the Italians making wine from grapes. What no one knew was that the risk was real, and it almost cost her life. Producers looked through the Italy to find a real grape. In Napa Valley stumble, it was Teresa Torelli D'Amico they found, who didn't speak English very well. The translating helped her a little, but there was no way to explain everything during the fast-paced filming. At the last minute, producers added a mock fight inside the vat to set the scene. More funny, what they didn't expect was that Teresa didn't get was make-believe. While filming on March 8, 1956, the fight broke out. Ball hit Torelli by accident while moving. Torelli dug it up in the grapes and took it seriously and attacked. She pinned it down in the grape mush and started to choke her. Lucille Ball's head was meant to, for a funny picture, pop up from the grapes. But it didn't work. She was being held while submerged in purple juice and gasping, for it turned out that she had grapes in her ears, nose, and even her throat. Had to put his neck around Teresa's to break free. Everything took place in front of a live studio audience, and no one knew. They thought she was really in danger. Was just another one of Lucy's funny physical jokes that made even the director laugh. What did William Asher not stop the scene of becoming famous on TV was only what really took place. They had to leave out most of the fight because it went on for so long, too long and too hard, but you can still. Ball's eyes show signs of worry at times. She had already told the producers that she didn't want a fake tug of war to make the scene seem real. Too bad it felt too real. The prop team had already come up with special water makeup that dissolves to keep Ball's skin safe because they hadn't turned purple. Planned to be close to drowning Ball later. To drown in a vat of grapes is not the path I meant to take. Wasn't the only time she almost drowned on film. Years later, while making the Lucy says she slipped in the shower scene and almost drowned again. Vance Lucille, her co-star, saved her. It was fun to watch Ball play, but behind the scenes, it was full of, they called about danger, stress, and real pain. It was one of the funniest parts of history of TV, but behind the eye laughed during the handcuffs episode of Love Lucy. Something important was taking place. It aired on October 6, 1952, and millions of people watched. Lucy and Ricky got stuck together by accident. What they didn't see wasn't meant for them to find. The secret safety tips that made everything possible, for nobody saw what was for over 70 years. Lucille Ball and Desi Ball were wrapped up. It wasn't part of the Arneza's wrist's fancy dress. It wasn't even meant to be seen. Both stars had under their sleeves ace bandages on skin tone. Medical grade was carefully kept secret. Just for comfort, they were safety. The chains that were used in that episode, they were not costume shop props. Were real, true-to-life Civil War era, about 90 years old at the time of filming. Heavy, sharp-edged, and fully unforgiving, the old metal had over the years, it has become hard and rusted, leaving it with rough edges that could saw cut skin. During the show's wild scenes, that wasn't just a chance, was a real danger. Every time Lucy pulled or Ricky swung the cuffs around, digging them in. Bandages worked like a wall, absorbing to protect their wrists from the shock bumps or blood. If you stop the episode today and pay close attention, you'll just barely catch it on Lucy's exposed wrist. The bandage edges show through, one close to her hand, the other more up her arm, but no one was there back then. Seen something? That's because of Carl Freud. He was in charge of lighting for the show. And the magic of the man behind the camera. Already, Freud had changed TV for good with his trio of cameras, but in this case, his job wasn't just about record laughs. It was about hiding the risk. he used angles and shadows and lights above to make sure those his system never had bandages that stood out. Letting them film whole scenes that they never changed the lights meant no breaks, no other work, and a hint, the cameras were put in the right place. To stay away from close-ups that would show the bandages while still holding on to all. The fans of slapstick chaos loved it, and chaos it was. One of the craziest times ever where Lucy and Ricky try to sleep while they're stuck together. They try to twist and tangle in the sheets to figure out what's going on with them without the bandages. That scene would be enough. They could have been hurt, and then that's the last act. The studio show Ricky is on stage, and Lucy is behind him, reaching out and taking his hand through his sleeve to make it look like it was his. It's a well-known joke, but it worked perfectly. Time over and over again, take after take, more stress because they had to do it again. Longer twists put more stress on there. That's where those hidden wraps are. On the wrists made a huge difference in this episode. Getting 8.6 on IMDb for a reason brought laughs, tension, and one premise that will stick with you. But the real it wasn't just the jokes that were funny, was in how well they looked after the people behind them. It looked like the perfect movie couple. Lucille Ball and Alan Arkin and Desi Arnaz made everyone laugh with I Love Lucy, but those black and the marriage in white smiles was tense. Lie and violence, according to those who worked together with them to ease the tension, was more than just emotional. It got physical. Member of the crew Maury Thompson remembered not only did Lucille kick Desi during arguments, but she laughed afterward. She didn't just aim for his behind, aimed low and right between the legs. She hit him hard enough sometimes that knocked him down, and hit him with a hammer and knocked him out. And she was so scared and angry at the same time. They held a gun to Desi's head and fired the gun. Luckily, it was an interesting lighter that just sparked a flame, but still think of the horror of it. That moment, all of this chaos took place while the film was being made on one of favorite sitcoms in the US. And the show that it was never just about. Lucy Ball didn't just want to laugh. She had to work with her husband. They were having trouble with their marriage before the show even started. Desire was already seeing someone else. They had already broken up once, so when CBS first cast I Love Lucy, Lucille said Desi should play her on-screen husband too. She thought not letting him leave would stop him from Not Everyone Sleeps Around, though one writer thought it was a good idea. Asked straight out,